Today we're going to be looking at the Aputure Amaran 672. The Aputure Amaran 672C is a bicolor LED light. For reference on size, it's a little shorter than 8 inches in height and a little shorter than 10 inches in width. On the back you have two dials. One is a temperature control, the other one is a brightness control. Across the top is where the two included batteries can be loaded, although it does come with the power cord also. We have our on-off switch, and we also have a port where we can plug in that power supply. In the middle we have our display, which shows us our brightness levels, our temperature, among other things. And we also have two buttons, one for channel and one for group. And that's so that you can use this with other lights, and that all can be controlled from the remote control. The LED light comes with a nice carrying bag. It fits everything that you need in there, including a bracket for a light stand or maybe a C-stand. In the bag comes a power cable, two Sony NP970 batteries, a remote control, and even replacement LED bulbs. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that the power cord is actually a pretty good length. There are some where the main part won't actually touch the floor, or it's not long enough so that you can't extend your light that far. But this one gives you enough room so that you can actually place it on the floor, and still enough room from there that you can plug it into the wall. But even if you're in a situation where you can't plug it into the wall, it still comes with those large capacity batteries, which should last you a very long time. One nice touch is if you have the batteries in the LED, but you have it plugged into the wall, it will actually charge those batteries in the device itself. As mentioned, we can adjust the temperature. We can change it from 5500 Kelvin to 3200 Kelvin, which goes from a warm color to a blue cool color, and those adjustments are indicated by the 55 and the 32 on the display. The brightness level on the Aputure 672C goes from 10 and all the way up to 99, which is the brightest. I turned off the light that was lighting our LED panel, and then this way you can see how much light is being thrown onto the back wall. As mentioned before, Aputure was kind enough to include the bracket in the bag, and then this way you can just attach it to the light stand, you can screw the light right into the top, and then you can place the light wherever you need to. The fact that they included that bracket makes this extremely versatile. And the reason I say that is because some light stands do have a quarter 20 that you can screw it into, but some of them don't. Another great thing about the panel itself is not only does it have a screw point at the bottom, but it's also ones on the sides too. So if you wanted to mount this vertically, you could just screw the mount into the bottom, and then you have a different configuration that way. Now I'm going to run a couple tests, and what I'm going to be using is my old Neewer 216 LED panel, and we'll compare that against the key light that I have, and of course the Aputure 672. Now this is what the light looks like up close, and obviously I don't have much separation from the background, but what I'm going to be doing in these upcoming tests is shooting this through one of those 5-in-1 reflectors, one of those scrims, and then that will just make the light softer and spread it out a little bit more. What I'm using for this test for the key light is a Godox SL60, and I have it going through a 48-inch softbox. So I'm going to be running through some tests here, and you're going to see my wonderful face and of course some finger guns. Don't worry, just don't ask questions. Here is our main key light, and as you can see the light is relatively soft of course, and that's because of the large softbox. Next is the Aputure 672, and I have that shooting through an extra level of diffusion, but you'll notice that there's not much of a change. And here's the little Neewer LED panel. As you'll notice, even though we're shooting it through diffusion, it's still giving you a bunch of shadows, and that's just because it's a smaller light source, and despite it being shot through that diffusion, it's not enough to flatten the scene. Now the reason I shot this color chart is just because I wanted to show you differences between that small LED panel and the Aputure 672. Right here is the Aputure 672, and I shot this with the most brightness intensity, and that was right around the 4100 temperature mark. The white and black marks across the bottom are balanced perfectly, so the Aputure gives you a little bit of a warm push, whereas if we move over to the smaller LED panel from Neewer, you can see where it's a little bit potentially cooler. I noticed that if I hover over the background that there's a little bit of a green push there. And you'll also notice the shadows. Of course, I can move back to lessen those, but then the light intensity goes down. Another great use of this light, besides being a main key light, is if you do have a main key light, which is what I'm being lit by here, you can use this as like an accent light or a hair light. So I mounted the 672 to a light stand, put it a little bit behind me and a little bit above me, and you can see how the light actually separates me a little bit from the background and gives me a little bit more dimension. So are there any cons to this light panel? Not really, but there are some things that you should be made aware of. To be honest, I'd be comfortable bringing this with me if I was going on a shoot where I was filming an interview. If you're bringing this into something like a corporate office, there's not too many moving parts per se. If I were to maybe bring this to a wedding or some other type of event, there's a possibility even with sandbags and light stands, that someone may inadvertently knock it over. So you just have to be mindful of where you use it. Having said that, and I haven't done this myself, but I imagine that you could mount it on a pretty robust light stand, maybe have it as an overhead light if someone was giving a speech at a wedding, let's say. The other thing that you should know is that the light intensity isn't the same at the extremes. And what I mean by that is if you're all the way at 5500 Kelvin or all the way at 3200, half of the LED lights are on, which I'm demonstrating here. Is that really a trade-off? The fact that it's not using half of the LEDs really doesn't impact it for me because the light is still intense. And in this case, I'll take that one caveat if I have the option to adjust the color balance. The last thing that I wanted to show you guys is that of course you could use the warming temperature on the LED panel to warm up the skin. But if you were to use a daylight balance light and shine it on the background and then white balance for the face, that will cool the warm light on the face, and of course it will cool the daylight balance light in the background, which will make that one a lot more blue. Of course, if you have a light that shoots cool temperatures, you could use that, but you can use this technique if you wanted to cool down everything but the subject. So considering the size of the 672, the fact that it's as large as it is, but as portable as it is, it comes with a diffusion panel along with all the other accessories, including batteries, so that you can just get up and going. The fact that you could probably use this on a set, mostly because you can actually power it right from the wall. The fact that you can charge those batteries while it's still operating, and then include that bracket so you can mount it on a light stand, again, to use it as a key light, a hair light, are all reasons why I think you should give this light as very serious consideration. Of course, Aputure has other lights like the 120D and the 120D version 2, among other lights, but especially even if you're on a budget, this is a great option. As I did in this video, put it through one of those diffusion panels that comes with the 5-in-1 reflectors, and you have sort of a makeshift softbox. So if you guys haven't already and you want more gear reviews like this, along with post-production tutorials, including DaVinci Resolve, among a couple other programs, go ahead and subscribe. All my socials are in the description below. I'm active on Twitter if you guys want to talk to me there, and I'll see you in the next video.